March 26th, 2005. It was an unseasonably warm Saturday. I threw on my lucky Dee Brown jersey, some cargo shorts, and wasted some time shooting baskets on her cul-de-sac. It seemed like the proper way to pass time on a day like this. While playing a solo game of Around the World, I couldn't help but think back to the hours of VHS recordings I'd watched as a young Illini fan. All those games from the 1989 Final Four run, and wonder how I would react if this team accomplished the same feat today. I was merely a fan, clearly not a player on the team, yet I felt I had to put on my own proper game face for this big moment. These were the kinds of days you live for as a fan, and I wasn't going to do anything to disrupt the cosmic balance that would help Illinois slay past tournament demons. A group of friends came over to watch the game at our house. My parents went with the neighborhood crew to Esquire in downtown Champaign. As a family, we agreed to stay radio silent during the game. No calls, no text. We'll talk after. The first half was a wash. Arizona was clearly up to the challenge, but Illinois made enough shots and defensive stops to take a 38-36 lead into halftime. I spent those 15 minutes pacing the house. My poor dog, Allie, our 12-year-old Cocker Spaniel, couldn't see too well anymore, but she could probably sense my nerves. I was already playing the mental game of, if they only outscore you by 1 point the rest of the way, you still win. Now that I think about it, this actually came true. Part of me wanted to fast forward to the end of the game to avoid the agonizing waiting, the will they or won't they. If I could have fast forwarded it through the next 16 minutes of game action, I would have. To this day, there is no extended stretch of any game I've ever watched, of any team I've ever rooted for, as brutal as what happened between the 20-minute and 4-minute mark of the second half. Never before or since have I fallen into such a pit of despair while watching sports as I did while Arizona took a small lead, then increased it, bit by excruciating bit. I had to leave my friends in the family room. It had gone silent, and meanwhile, I felt like I would burst any minute. I retired to the playroom above the garage to watch the last few minutes of this season, once so promising, ending so tortuously, the worst possible conclusion to what had been a nearly 5-month-long fairy tale. 6 minutes to go. The Wildcats' methodical offense kept getting open looks. Channing Frye slipped out to the top of the key just outside the three-point line. Up and in. 70-58 Arizona. My head felt like it was swimming in battery acid. I went to my first release valve when I got angry watching sports. Cursing. "Why, you mother," I began. I realized words alone were not enough to express the utter rage I was feeling. My eyes darted around the room, looking for something, anything, to throw against the wall. A lone bottle of starch shone like Excalibur on the ironing board just feet away. I took a breath, 2 steps, calmly grabbed the bottle, cocked back my arm, and whoosh! A loud crunch followed. I arched my head up ever so slightly to survey the damage. There in the drywall was the most perfectly round circle you've ever seen, the starch bottle halfway inside of it. Feeling equal parts maniacal and moronic, I slumped back onto the futon by the TV and sat silently. Fiery anger had been replaced by exhausted acceptance. I'd already said enough in earlier profanity-laced tirades and done enough by chucking a bottle through the wall. It was time to let this season die in peace. 4 minutes to go. Arizona 75, Illinois 60. I was no stranger to crazy comebacks. Some worked, Seton Hall 2001. Some didn't, the first Arizona game from that same season. The term fake rally may not have been in the lexicon back in 2005, but it was exactly what I dreaded as Illinois made a few consecutive shots. Either come back or don't, I repeated like a mantra at the Sony TV in front of me. Either come back or don't. They kept coming back. A 3 by Deron with 3:51 to go, 75-63. 2 free throws by Arizona with 3:28 left, 77-63. A 3 by Luther Head, 3:19, 77-66. Turnover by Arizona, 3:02 to go. Dee Brown putback off a Luther Head miss, 2:45, 77-68. Stoudemire missed, but Powell blocked on a putback, 1:47. Luther Head steal and layup, 1 minute, 21 seconds, 77-70. 1 made Arizona free throw, followed by Deron Williams taking it to the hoop for a layup, 1 minute and 7 seconds, 78-72. 2 made Arizona free throws, 1 minute, 3 seconds to go, 80-72. Over the years, the 15-point deficit with 4 minutes to go has become the go-to line whenever there's a retelling of the comeback. Arguably, an 8-point deficit with 1 minute to go is even more impressive. In 5 short seconds, Deron drove the length of the court and tossed it to Luther, launching a desperation three-pointer from 25 feet out. Through the hoop, 80-75. With 49 seconds to go, Dee Brown snatches the ball at half court. 4 seconds later, he lays it up and in. 80-77. Timeout, Arizona. I couldn't believe what I was watching. My heart was racing, but I stayed seated. Surely they wouldn't pull this off, would they? And if they didn't, the near comeback would have stung even more than if they just lost by double digits. Either come back or don't. 45 seconds on the clock. Arizona inbounding it from under Illinois' basket. Ingram, in for a fouled-out Augustine, stays on Channing Frye instead of guarding the inbounder. The pass lofts up past the three-point line, intended for Frye, but Ingram gets a piece of it. The ball falls in Luther's hands, but he doesn't have a clean look. He tosses it to his left, where Dee is standing next to the baseline, but not in a position to shoot it. From across the court, a wide-open Deron raises his hand. The cross-court pass hits Deron perfectly as an Arizona defender pops out. Ingram, still at the top of the key, sets a pick as Deron takes one dribble and one step to the left. As called by Vern Lundquist. Williams to tie it with a 3. He does! Illinois 80, Arizona 80. Tie game, 38 seconds to go. In a season full of iconic moments, this was the one. For a basketball program with a long list of iconic moments, this may be the one. Watching it back to make sure my memory was accurate, to see if I'd missed anything, sent chills down my spine like no other sports memory I've experienced before or since. There is one thing I picked out on the video. After Deron nails the game-tying shot, Luther lets out a primal scream and flexes his arms, all while heading back to pick up his man on defense. For some reason, seeing that in-the-moment reaction from someone who otherwise had a calm demeanor on the court illustrates how insane the moment was. Sure, the bench is going crazy, followed by a cutaway of Bill Murray putting his hands on his head in disbelief. But Luther's reaction is probably that of many Illini fans. In fact, it was exactly what I did as I rose from the futon for the first time in 4 minutes. Illinois got the stop they needed. Luther blocked Stoudemire's three-point attempt with 2 seconds left. The buzzer sounded. Overtime. Dee Brown can be seen, like Bill Murray moments earlier, and so many Illini fans across the country, putting his hands on his head. He was in just as much shock as everyone else. At this point, I heard a stampede coming up the stairs. My friends burst through the door and piled on me, screaming with jubilation. I finally exhaled, overwhelmed with what just happened, and feeling incredibly lucky this team had another 5 minutes left in their season. Going against my superstitious tendencies, I left the playroom to head back downstairs for the extra period. Overtime started off where the second half ended. Deron hit a 3 as Illini fans everywhere hoped we could blow it open against a shocked Arizona team. No dice. Channing Frye followed with a layup and a dunk to give them an 84-83 lead with 3 minutes, 52 seconds to go. Just past the 3-minute mark, Roger laid it in to regain the lead. Then with 2:16 left, Deron hit yet another three to make it 88-84 Illinois. A highlight reel moment came next as Luther, gimpy from a leg injury, stowed the ball from Mustafa Shakur and took it all the way for a layup. The look on his face one of both pain and determination. 90-84 with 1:57 left in the game. Illinois did not score again. Arizona, meanwhile, got an and one and another layup from Hassan Adams, closing the gap to 90-89 with 52 seconds left. The Illini milked the clock in their next possession as Luther missed a jumper. After a timeout with 11 seconds left, Arizona had one last chance. Adams, who already had 21 points in a monster performance, got the pass from Stoudemire. Deron kept Adams in front of him as he dribbled, tried to break him down, dribbled some more before the clock forced him to heave up a contested step-back three. Off the backboard, no good. Buzzer sounds. Illinois 90, Arizona 89. It took me about 5 seconds to register what just happened. Around me, chaos. My friends were screaming, jumping up and down as I stood, stunned. Illinois was going to the Final Four. My friend Andrew knocked me out of my stupor with a hug. Everyone started hugging everyone else. I'm sure wherever you ended up watching it, you were hugging people too, strangers even. And that's okay. Rarely does life provide such moments of pure, unadulterated joy. Whenever it does, hug someone. For the rest of the night, I basked in the glow. At one point, a small group of us sat at our dining room table, slunk back in chairs, worn out and slap-happy. Whatever our conversation, I somehow doubt it was the most lucid. I'm fairly certain I broke the single-day record for saying, wow, with unbelievable a close second. As a younger fan, I would have appreciated this moment, too. Now, 18 years old and a few months removed from enrolling at the university, having spent an entire childhood growing up with Illini basketball in the forefront of my mind, I could appreciate its historic nature. Illinois might someday win a national title, possibly 9 days from this moment, but nothing would ever top what we just witnessed. Later that evening, my parents and sisters stopped by the house. The word had spread on WDWS that the team was on their charter buses home. Like thousands of others, we drove to the Assembly Hall lots and lined up along 4th Street across from the oven. Come to find out, on their journey home, the overpasses along Interstate 57 had their own groups of Illini fans cheering as they sped past in their Peoria charters. It was the world's largest ticker tape parade, lasting the entire 135 miles between Chicago and Champaign. The next day was Easter. My dad noted the coincidence. The last time Illinois made the Final Four was on Easter Sunday, 1989, with an 89-86 win over Syracuse. He recalls watching it in another room at my grandparents' house. Probably a smart move. I would have wanted some solitude at that moment, too. Come to think of it, I sauntered off to another room at my own house for some peace, quiet, and the ceremonial sacrifice of a starch bottle through the drywall. Being a holiday and feeling thankful, we groggily made it to the late church service at Good Shepherd Lutheran. Bruce Weber and his family were members, and they made it out despite what I'm guessing was an even later night than ours. Not only that, but James Augustine, who was then dating the daughter of another member family, made an appearance. Kind of hard to miss, what with his 6'10" frame. Pastor Donna stopped the service a few minutes in. A straight talker, she acknowledged the elephant in the room and elicited a standing ovation from the congregation. After 15 seconds or so, the service continued on, as did the parishioners' glances at our Final Four-bound coach and center. I can only imagine the melee around the coffee and donut table afterwards. Hopefully they got out of there in one piece. Later that afternoon, I drove to a nearby True Value hardware store to grab all the necessary supplies to fix drywall. After a win like that, my parents were in too good of a mood to punish me any further. I stirred the spackling compound and got to work, a huge grin plastered on my face, as I relived one of the greatest comebacks in college basketball history, one layer of drywall at a time.